Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. Well, it's been about a week since the last time that we talked, and I've had quite a few of my own events. So I'm going to share a little bit about that, and then we'll get into the seeding. So my name's Soleil, and I garden in mid-Michigan in a Zone 5B, and I also really like to go downhill skiing. Well, this last weekend I went on a trip with my son and some friends, and unfortunately, after taking one of my fun ski jumps, I landed awkwardly. So I am a little bit laid up. I might have to have surgery. I don't know yet. But I definitely have some fracture and torn stuff, and it's not good. So I gotta try to get myself into a situation where hopefully I can do some gardening, but you might see like my son and my husband helping me a little bit more in some of my videos just because I really can't get around. I won't be able to drive for a while, and I just kind of have an immobile right leg right now. So anyways, welcome. Enough about that. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. So today we're going to do a little bit of winter sowing. I've been looking forward to this. I wanted to wait because it's not great to do it too early. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but the seeds will just sit there in my zone because it's so cold. And right now we just got another 5 inches of snow, so really it's just white outside. So if you want to do some winter sowing, it's really good to look for some different plants that are often perennial in your area. You can also sow some cold hardy annuals like spinach or Brussels sprouts or other types of crops that really like being grown in cold weather. So there's quite a few of those, and we're going to do some of those today as well as some flowers. And so for me, I have some seeds that I had saved from last year. These are some Echinacea. These are the Cleopatra Echinacea. And so they're kind of a creamy white and yellow coneflower. And I really enjoyed them last year. And then I have some more penstemon seeds. I did some of these indoors. They haven't quite germinated yet, but I also want to sow these in some winter sowing to see how they do outside. These are hardy to zone 6, so they should be fine out there. And I have some goat's beard that I'm going to winter sow. I don't know if I'm going to do all of these today, but I just want to share with you some of the things that I'm going to do because I may not do them all in this video. So goat's beard is also a perennial, and it's a plant that has really pretty white kind of plume-like blooms, and it's just a very different plant. It almost looks like a giant astilbe. And then I have some foxglove. So we're going to do some foxglove Excelsior mix. I did some of these last year and I really enjoyed having these. I planted them at the base of my clematis and they were really pretty. So we're going to do some more of these this year. Then I am also going to plant some vegetables. I have winterbor kale. This is a cool weather crop, and so it's really good to get them out and do winter sowing. And I'm also going to do that with these radishes. These are called salad rose radishes. So these will be great. They will start growing on as soon as the weather turns warm enough and there's enough sun to germinate. So in order to winter sow, you do need some type of translucent or transparent container, and a lot of people use milk jugs. I just had like my sister and my mom collect some for me, so thank you so much, Mom and Tara, I appreciate it. And then you just clean them out and prepare them. And I have some other types of containers that I'm going to try out this year. So this is just from the dollar store. It's a big Tupperware container, and then I'm going to put some of these seed starter trays in it so that they're already separated. And what I'm going to do is create a dome over the top of them. So I think that's going to be a fun thing to try this year because I've never tried that. And it might be an interesting way for them to be able to grow on without having to separate them, because in the milk jugs they can just grow on by themselves, and then you have to kind of take the seeds apart in order to grow them on bigger. So the first step that I'm going to do is to put some holes in the bottom of this, because I need to create some drainage for it. And then I'm also going to cut right around the sides here, and that will help open it up so that I can do the sewing. But I'll leave a bit of plastic still right here where the jug handle meets the base, and that will allow the base and the top to stay together. And then when I'm done, I will use some painter's tape to just tape it together. Okay, so I have this Romeck hot knife, and this is what we're going to use to cut some slits in the bottom of these milk jugs to create drainage, and then we're going to use it to also just cut the milk jug. You can use scissors for this as well. You can use a wood burner. There's all sorts of different things that you can use for this. This is just a knife that we happen to have on hand from some different Halloween decorations that my husband was making. And I'm just cutting some kind of X's into this. Cut around. This might actually be easier with scissors to cut that part, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish up the holes on the bottom, and then I'm going to use regular scissors to cut around the sides of this. So I hope that you can see what I'm doing here. It's kind of hard because I have to definitely look at it because this is a hot knife. But really all I'm doing is creating holes in the bottom here so that water can seep out as it rains or snows and it builds up inside of the jug. Alright, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut these milk jugs, and I usually just start by poking a hole with the scissors if I can. And I'm going to cut just under the level where the milk jug handle is, and it does not have to be a perfect cut. But essentially you can see I have cut around the bottom now, and we have a little bit of an area where it's still connected, and I can open it to put some soil in. You can use juice jugs, or you can use any containers that you want. I'll show you another one that I have here of this container. If it's not going to be something that gets really big very quickly, you can use something that is smaller. But these milk jugs, the reason why a lot of people use them is there's plenty of room for the seedlings to grow on a bit inside of them before they get too tall. Alright, so I think the first one that we're going to do will be foxgloves. So this is the Excelsior mix of foxgloves. These grow 5 feet tall, and the depth to sow these are barely covered, and these emerge in about 14 to 21 days, and they bloom in early summer. So these are going to be really fun to get in the ground. I did some at the end of fall last year that hadn't bloomed yet, so I'm really hopeful that they will bloom this coming year and then just continue to set seed. I have really good luck in my yard with mine reseeding themselves. And these are considered a biennial, which means they flower every other year, but if you sow them and you get enough of them, if you plant them a couple of years in a row, then you always have them blooming every year regardless, because you know, the first one will bloom in the year 3 and the second one will bloom in year 2 and 4, so you can set them up so they're just all blooming at the same time. I hope that makes sense. So these are biennials in zone 4 to 8, and they are really teeny tiny seeds. Okay, so I'm just going to also make sure I create a label, and Spartan fans, don't pay any attention to this blue and yellow together because it's just the painter's tape. We're adding some red in here. It's all about the green and white still. So I just want to make sure that I label them, because as soon as I sow these, I will likely forget what I put in which jug. And then I'm just going to take a regular potting mix that I have, and I'm going to pre-moisten it a bit, and then we'll fill up the jug. Give that a good stir. You can try out whatever potting mixes that you want as well. I think some people feel like they have better success with regular potting mix, and some people feel like they have better success with a seed starting mix that's more, that's less dense and is lighter, like just a pure peat moss or something like that. But I'm just using my regular house plant potting mix. Okay, I think this is a pretty good consistency. You know, a lot of seeds do better with finer textured soil, but depending on your climate and how much rain and snow you get, you might want a denser soil as well to help hold some of the water in. Let's see here, we'll use the big scoop. So the soil is about the right consistency for me. It looks like it's at the, you know, kind of dampness and the texture that I like, which is not overly wet, but enough so that it holds together really well. And I'm not going to fill this up because the foxglove don't need a ton of roots, and they don't need to be super huge before I can pot them out into the yard. So I've got probably about 2 inches of soil in here. And the seeds for foxglove are really small. I do like to seed these fairly densely because when I separate them, they're a really fairly easy plant to actually separate. So I'm not worried about overseeding. I would rather have a higher germination rate and have plenty of plants. These seeds are also from 2020, so they are expired, but I do anticipate still being able to get plenty of them germinating. So this is how teeny tiny these seeds are. And I'm just going to sprinkle them right on top of the soil. And I'm going to kind of firm the soil down a little bit just so that I ensure that I get out some of the air, so that as they root out they have plenty of contact with the soil, because again they're very tiny seeds. So I have a really nice flat surface in there at this point. I'm just going to continue to sprinkle these about in there. And if these all germinate, or even half of them, I'll have more foxglove than I could possibly need. Alright, and in goes the label right inside. Then we'll close this up. Now before I close this up, I'm just going to give it a real quick sprinkle with some vermiculite. This will just help give a really light cover to those seeds. And that's just some water to mist that and hold it in place before I water everything in here. Alright, that should do it. I like painter's tape because it's really easy to get off. It comes off super easy. And you can write on it really easy if you need to write a label on the outside. You have to be a little bit careful though, because the weather can sometimes make it impossible to read or wear off whatever you've written on the outside of the tape. If you get a lot of, rain or snow, that can be an issue. That's pretty much what it looks like at the end. And again, I've got my little tag in there, so we're ready to go with some foxgloves. All right, next up, let's do some winterbor kale. So winterbor kale is a frost-tolerant and high-yielding proven performer. It matures in about 80 days, so it's really good to get it started now because it does take a while to mature. And this gets sown at 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep, so a little bit deeper, 1 inch apart in rows. These also do okay with when you take them out of the container and you separate them and replant them. They don't really have much shock or anything like that, so I have no problem with heavily seeding these as well. And these are grown in full sun, so I am going to go ahead and get these ready. And the nice thing about kale is if you like to eat it, you can eat it at just about any time. So you can use it, kind of as almost a microgreen, as well as waiting until it matures to eat it as larger leaves. Sometimes it can be sweeter when it's smaller, but it also does really well if it gets some frost on it. So putting it outside early can sometimes help sweeten it up a little bit. So I'm going to put just a little bit more soil into this container. That way there'll be a little bit more room for things to grow and for the roots to go down in. These seeds are a little bit bigger, and as I often say, you can usually tell the depth to plant a seed in by the size of the seed. So these are a little bit bigger, and as I said, you need to sow them a little bit deeper. But right now I'm just going to sprinkle them over the top here. And again, I'm definitely doing a bit of an overseed But I will also plant some of these out in the garden when it is closer to time to do that outside, because that way I have crops. It's called succession planting, where you plan ahead for one crop to mature and then another one later. Just helps make sure that you have a continual harvest throughout the season. And you can do that with flowers as well. All right, so I have just added a thin layer of soil over the top there. Do a skosh of the vermiculite as well. One thing that I like about using vermiculite is I think that sometimes it's easier to see the seedlings come through because it's a little bit of a lighter color than the potting mix is. So I have some of these seeds left. I'm just going to fold that over and I will tape it. And I need a label. Here we go. Winterbor kale. And I don't mind writing directly on the label, but after I use it once, if it still has the writing on it and I need it to be used for something else, I just put tape over it, and that works pretty well for me. All right, let's tape this guy up. I'm gonna have to clear some snow off my deck to put these out tomorrow morning. We were supposed to get 1 to 3 inches and we got more like 5. And it's okay if your jug is not 100% sealed in terms of the tape. If a little bit of water gets in or a little bit of air, that's absolutely fine. You do want to check on your winter sowings, you know, once every week or so, just to make sure that they're not drying out completely. I forgot to water this one in before I did this, so I'm just going to add a little bit more water up top here. I'm just turning it so it goes around the whole thing. Okay, the next one that we're going to do is radishes. I think I actually need to moisten some more of this soil because it's not quite fully moistened. Are you guys doing any winter sowing this year? If so, what are you planning to grow, or what have you already started growing? I'm wondering if you've already got them out, or if you're waiting until a certain day to get started. In Zone 5B where I am, I probably still could have waited a few more weeks and it would still give plenty of time. We often will get snow into early April here. My birthday happens to be in the first week of April, and that's why it's really easy for me to remember, because about 50% of the time here it snows on my birthday. Now these radishes I'm going to be a little more sparse with because I'm not planning to really transplant them, so I only want to grow maybe 8 in here. They don't grow super huge. And I like them when they're still small. They are definitely sweeter. This is the salad rose radish, and it is sown about half an inch deep, and they emerge in about 4 to 6 days. That's how quickly they germinate, so they're rather fast growers. going to try to be a little bit more careful about spacing these out so that they have room for the roots to grow. And these are also from 2020, so I did overseed a little bit in terms of ensuring that I have enough crop that comes up. I'm just going to press those in. And we'll do another scoop of soil over the top. Water it in. Myself a label here. And I know a lot of people have tons of success with this, and it's a really great way to grow things if you don't have grow lights inside or you don't have a lot of space in your house to save money. Even if you have grow lights or you have space in your house like I do, you can run out if you know, get excited about gardening like I do and you just want to grow everything that you see. Okay, maybe not everything, but a lot of it. Okay, I'm going to do one more sowing, and I am going to use this, and it is going to be for my Echinacea and my penstemon. So we'll do half and half in here, and hopefully I don't break this plastic. Well, I probably am gonna. I'm gonna cut it at the edges. That always works out pretty well for me to have drainage. Now you do want to make sure when you put these outside that they're weighted down well enough. So if you don't have, I'm just poking holes in the top and the bottom right now. So if you don't have enough soil in it to keep it weighted down, if a good wind comes along, you want to make sure you put a rock on it or something heavy enough to weight it down. So just wanted to pass that along because I have had mine blow over the first year that I started doing this. And nobody had said anything. Maybe they didn't have any wind in their area, but we have plenty here. And the reason why I'm going to grow these in this is because I know that the penstemon will transplant out fairly early in the season, and the Echinacea does not get super tall until it starts to sprout a flower, and those don't come until later in the season. Kind of water this a little bit more. And if you water things too much, you should see some water come out the bottom if you've created the drainage holes. Okay, this is what the Echinacea seeds look like. They look a little bit like marigold seeds. Just sprinkle these. Here. And unfortunately, when you collect your own seeds, they don't really come with instructions, but again, what I can tell you is just in general, using kind of the size of the seed, it gives me a hint in terms of whether I need to put soil on top of them or if they're just a surface sow or not. What did I do with the penstemon? Here they are. It will be a very interesting comparison to see how my penstemon seeds do that I am growing inside and under the grow light versus how they do outside in winter sowing. And how many of them self-germinate in my yard because I left the seed heads on over winter. Sometimes that's even the easiest way to get additional plants, is just to leave your seed heads on, because whatever the birds and animals don't get, they may end up in the ground anyhow. So I don't need quite as much soil on top of those penstemon seeds because they're not as big. So I'm going to put most of this soil on this side. And then I'm just going to use the vermiculite over the whole thing. And this vermiculite just helps keep the moisture where it's supposed to be, which is around the seeds on top. This one I'm just gonna try to spray it here. Oh, don't forget my label. I almost forgot my label, you guys. Actually, I think I'm just going to write on the box. So this is Echinacea. And this side is penstemon. Okay, well that concludes the video for today. I hope you had fun and learned a little bit about winter sowing. I'm going to get these outside and we'll see how they grow on. About 2 months from now, they'll start really going to town. So should be fun to see them in early April and how they're popping up. Might even be some in the end of March if there is enough heat and sunlight, and that could be really exciting. Thanks again for joining me today. I certainly appreciate everybody who's watching, and for those who are new to my channel, thanks so much for subscribing and all of your wonderful comments. I look forward to hearing what you guys are doing in terms of what winter seeds you're sowing, whether it's winter sowing or sowing inside. And again, just thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.